Today, we're diving into all the ways your tax filings can affect your ability to get a mortgage. It's that time of year again, and taxes can have a dramatic effect on your ability to get a mortgage. Whether you're a W-2 employee, a sole proprietor, or a business owner paying yourself as a W-2 employee, there are nuances you'll want to consider if you're seeking a mortgage in 2023, and nobody explains this better than Kelly Zitlow. Let's hear it directly from this mortgage expert in her new video, How Filing Taxes Affects Mortgages in 2023. She'll deliver the expert guidance you need, and once you're qualified, Elizabeth and I will be there and ready to help you find your perfect home.
Taxes can have an effect on the mortgage process. I don't know about you, but I like it when home loans close smoothly, and that's what we're all about here at the Kelly Zitlow Group. So there are a few things that you should know to prepare for this time of the year. One, let's start with W-2 wage earners who do not own 25% or more of the company. And this is important because sometimes self-employed people that have 25% or more ownership in a company, sometimes they pay themselves a W-2. And so they like to think of themselves as wage earners, but the reality is, from a lending perspective, if you have ownership in the company of 25% or more, you're classified as a self-employed borrower, which means those guidelines are going to take precedence. Now, if you are a straight W-2 wage earner, or your client is, easy peasy this time of the year. The lender isn't going to be so worried about the tax filing, but remember that they are going to be looking at the 2021 and 2022 W-2s. They're going to want to see consistency in the income earned. If there's any changes to that year over year, red flag, got to talk about it, got to know what's going on. So we got to dive deep. But that 2022 W-2 will be issued by the end of January, and lenders are going to be asking for that. And I can't stress enough, if there have been material changes year over year in the tax filing, especially if those changes are declining income, that can be a red flag. So getting this documentation up front is really a key for any lender to set that borrower and you up for success. So now, what about self-employed borrowers? That's people like you, real estate agents, anybody that has maybe contract work, or anyone who owns 25% or more of a business. But first, if you have clients who you want us to talk them through this process, don't forget, we now lend in 38 states, and we are happy to do a quick 15-minute consultation with them. Just have them click on our schedule link in the description below. Okay, so for self-employed borrowers, what exactly is a self-employed borrower? As I mentioned previously, a self-employed borrower, from a lending perspective, is somebody that has 25% or more ownership in a company. Now, this could be a sole proprietor, this could be a partnership, this could be somebody that is just on a contract with a company, but they're paid a 1099. All of those are going to fall into self-employed lending guideline requirements. What do self-employed people need to know about tax filing timing and extensions? Again, big deal this time of year. It really depends. First, know that from a self-employed borrower standpoint, the lender, the home loan lender, is going to want not only their most recent filed tax return, but in this scenario, based on this timing, the lender is going to ask for a profit and loss and potentially a balance sheet for all of 2022 together with year-to-date on 2023. So now we get into just a lot of documentation that's going to be required until they have filed their 2022 tax return. After that point, then the tax returns for the last 2 years, together with the year-to-date balance sheet and profit and loss, is going to be the requirement from a lending perspective for self-employed borrowers. And why is that? Because the lending guidelines are going to require that the underwriter determine that the income is stable. That's really the deal. And that's why there's just more documentation that goes into self-employed borrowers, because there's a lot of moving pieces. And from an extension standpoint, we have had scenarios where the 2022, let's say, it was a better year than 2021, but until that tax return is filed, the lender is not going to use that income from a qualification standpoint. This is why it's so important to have your borrowers talk with an experienced lender that understands the details that go into structuring home loans for self-employed borrowers. Timing is everything. Now, my number one conversation before looking at a tax return, when I'm talking with a client up front, if they don't kind of know what their net filed income is on that tax return, I always say, hey, if you're filing a Schedule C on your tax return, pull out last year's filed tax return and go to line 31 on the Schedule C, because that net number is the basis of where lenders are going to start from calculating income. So for example, let's say that they had gross receipts of $500,000 and then they wrote off $490,000. Then line 31 is $10,000. Now, there are some other things that go along in that middle section of a Schedule C that lenders can add back in to help that bottom line usable income, but that's just an example of when we talk to people, especially self-employed people, they're like, oh yeah, I make X dollars. But then when we get the tax returns, they don't support those X dollars. They probably really do make that amount of money, but what's claimed on the tax return is what the lender is going to use. This is why really getting this education out to self-employed people is so crucial, especially this time of the year. Today we've talked a lot about self-employed borrowers, but there's actually a lot more to know.